The boundaries are broader now. But we were talking about that when, you know, the first record with Brooks and Dunn, you know. I think they just continue to expand.
Ronnie Dunn's life was never easy, but it was always filled with music. Born on June 1, 1953, in Coleman, Texas, Ronnie grew up between two very different worlds. His father was a hard-working truck driver who played country guitar in bars. His mother, on the other hand, was deeply religious and filled their home with gospel music and strong Baptist values. One day, Ronnie would be sitting in church, singing hymns. The next day, he'd be watching his dad perform in smoky honky-tonk bars. That strange mix of the sacred and the wild shaped who Ronnie became. It gave him a deep connection to music, not just as entertainment, but as something powerful that could tell stories and stir emotions. Music became his escape and his dream, even if life was always pulling him in different directions. Ronnie didn't have a stable childhood. He moved around a lot and attended 13 different schools across Texas and Oklahoma. Every time he changed schools, he had to make new friends and adjust to new surroundings. But instead of letting it break him, Ronnie used these changes to grow. Each new place brought him into contact with different kinds of music: country, gospel, blues. This gave Ronnie something most singers never get: real musical range. He didn't just hear one style of music, he absorbed many. He even joined his school band and played the saxophone, which is very rare for a country artist. This experience taught him how music works on a deeper level, how rhythm and melody connect to the heart. At home, even after working long hours, his dad would still find time to play music with him. These lessons weren't from a classroom. They came from real life and real struggle. That's what made Ronnie's music feel so honest and soulful. In the early 1970s, Ronnie tried to follow a more traditional path. He enrolled at Abilene Christian University and studied psychology. But his heart wasn't in it. He began sneaking out at night to perform in bars. The school had strict rules, and playing in bars was not allowed. Eventually, this behavior got him kicked out. While many might have gone back to school or taken a safer path, Ronnie made a different choice. He doubled down on music. He also stayed close to his faith. During this time, he worked as a youth pastor and music leader at a small church. This shows how deeply his faith stayed with him, even when he was chasing his musical dreams. Gospel music wasn't just something he listened to, it was part of who he was. You can still hear the power of gospel in his voice when he sings. It's that mix of soul, hope, and struggle that makes Ronnie Dunn's voice unforgettable. By the 1980s, Ronnie had moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which had a booming music scene. Bars and clubs like Tulsa city limits were always packed with people ready to dance and have a good time. Ronnie performed night after night, sometimes for crowds of over 2,000 people. These shows weren't easy. You had to win over the crowd quickly. If the music didn't make people dance, they lost interest. Ronnie learned how to read a room and how to bring energy to every performance. These experiences were better than any music school. They taught him how to connect with an audience, how to turn feelings into songs, and how to deliver a performance that people would never forget. In 1988, his big break came from an unexpected place: a Marlboro-sponsored talent search. A drummer friend entered Ronnie's name without asking. Ronnie submitted a demo with early versions of Scootin Boogie and Neon Moon. He made it to the finals and won. That victory came with a trip to Nashville and a chance to record with producer Scott Hendricks. And everything changed from that moment. That same year, Ronnie was introduced to a struggling artist named Kix Brooks. At the time, both men were in their 40s and tired from years of rejection. They had both tried to make it as solo artists without much success. Neither of them wanted to be in a duo, but a record executive named Tim Du Bois thought they might work well together. He set up a lunch meeting. It was awkward at first. Kix even admitted, "We don't want to do this." But something unexpected happened: they clicked. That meeting turned into a songwriting session, then another, and soon they had written 2 songs that would become country music classics: Brand New Man and My Next Broken Heart. Just a year later, in 1991, they released their debut album Brand New Man, and it exploded. 4 songs from that album reached #1. Scootin Boogie started a line dancing craze, and Neon Moon became a timeless heartbreak anthem. The album sold over 7 million copies in the US alone. It was the start of something huge. The magic of Brooks and Dunn came from their differences. Ronnie had a deep, emotional voice that could make any sad song feel like a prayer. Kix had an upbeat, energetic style that could fire up a crowd. Together, they created a sound that was unique and unforgettable. From 1992 to 2006, they won more awards than any other country duo. They sold over 30 million albums and had 24 #1 hits. Songs like My Maria, Red Dirt Road, and Ain't Nothing 'Bout You became radio anthems. For years, they were unbeatable. They packed stadiums, rocked massive tours, and became legends in country music. Every new artist wanted to be like them, but no one could take their place. They were the voice of a generation, combining talent, heart, and showmanship like no one else. But behind the spotlight, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. By the mid-2000s, cracks started to appear. Ronnie and Kix were burned out from the constant touring, recording, and performing. The pressure of staying at the top was taking its toll. They began recording in separate studios, working with different producers, and spending more time apart. This wasn't because of anger, it was exhaustion. They were tired, and the partnership that had once felt like magic started to feel more like a business agreement. Fans had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. Brooks and Dunn always looked strong on stage. But off stage, they were dealing with emotional and creative fatigue. Ronnie admitted years later that they almost broke up several times before their official announcement. They kept pushing forward, not for themselves, but for the fans who loved them. In August 2009, they finally said it was time to call it a day. The news shocked the country music world. No drama, no big fight, just a short message that said, "It's time." And just like that, an era ended. Their final concert took place on September 3, 2010, at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. It was emotional, powerful, and bittersweet. For fans, it felt like saying goodbye to a part of their lives. But for Ronnie Dunn, it was even deeper. The end of Brooks and Dunn left him feeling lost. For 2 decades, his life followed a rhythm: record, tour, repeat. Without that structure, he felt like he had stepped off a moving train into silence. He later said, "I didn't know who I was without the brand." He released solo music, but it didn't get the same attention. Country radio, which had once loved him, was now focused on younger artists. Dunn felt ignored. He admitted it was the darkest time of his career. He began to doubt himself. The voice that once filled stadiums now seemed unwanted. That rejection hurt more than fans realized. It wasn't about fame, it was about feeling like he didn't matter anymore. But Ronnie Dunn didn't give up. Instead of writing music for radio, he started writing for himself. The songs became more personal, more raw, and full of soul. In 2011, he released his first solo album, simply titled Ronnie Dunn. It was a bold move, and it worked. The album hit #1 on the Billboard Country chart and #5 on the overall Billboard 200. The lead single, Bleed Red, became a hit, even though Ronnie didn't write it himself. Its message of unity and healing connected deeply with fans, especially during a time when America was struggling after a recession. Ronnie proved that he still had something to say, and people were still willing to listen. In 2014, he took another risk and released Peace, Love, and Country Music. The album mixed country with rock, blues, and even electronic sounds. It surprised a lot of people. One track, Country This, even had a dubstep-style drop. Ronnie was breaking the rules again, showing that country music could be whatever he wanted it to be. Ronnie's solo career became a journey of independence. In 2014, he launched his own label, Little Willie Records, named after his father's nickname. He wanted full creative control and no interference from record companies. He even skipped traditional music stores and released his albums directly to fans online. It was a bold move, especially in Nashville. But it gave him the freedom he had always wanted. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was making music from the heart. Over the next few years, he released several more albums, including Tattooed Heart in 2016, featuring a surprising cover of an Ariana Grande song, and Redone in 2020, a collection of covers paying tribute to his musical heroes. These projects showed that Ronnie Dunn wasn't afraid to take chances. He was still evolving, still pushing boundaries, and still making music that mattered. And in an industry obsessed with youth and trends that was brutal. Even with his name, his voice, and his history, he struggled to get airplay. It was a hard truth. Fame doesn't protect you from being forgotten. After their split in 2010, Brooks and Dunn were done. But in December 2014, something changed. A surprise announcement stunned the country music world. Kix Brooks and Ronnie Dunn would reunite with Reba McEntire for a Las Vegas residency. They called it Together in Vegas. When the show launched at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace in June 2015, it was like time rewound. The chemistry between them was still there, stronger than ever. People rushed in to see it. More than 300,000 tickets were sold, and by 2017, it had brought in over $50 million. Fans weren't just watching a concert. They were watching history get rewritten. Even Rolling Stone said the shows had electric nostalgia. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a statement. And it opened the door for other country stars to follow them to Vegas. But they didn't stop there. In 2019, they did something most legends avoid. They changed their sound. The album was called Reboot. Instead of repeating old hits, they reimagined them. And they didn't do it alone. They brought in a new generation. Casey Musgraves, Luke Combs, Kane Brown, Thomas Rhett. Each song was a fresh version of a classic, blending old-school twang with modern country shine. It was risky, but it worked. On April 20th, 2019, Reboot hit #1 on Billboard's Top Country Albums chart. That was their first #1 album in a decade. In its first week, it moved over 21,000 units. Streams rolled in by the millions. Critics loved it. NPR called it a masterclass in musical reinvention. And fans, both old and new, were suddenly united under one sound. Brooks and Dunn weren't just back. They were bigger than ever. That same year, the honor they long deserved finally came. On October 20th, 2019, they were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Their names were now etched next to legends like Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton. At the ceremony, both Brooks and Dunn held back tears. It had been a long journey from small gigs in Nashville to the biggest stages in the world. But the numbers said it all. Over 30 million albums sold, 20 songs at #1, and a record 17 CMA Vocal Duo of the Year awards. No other country duo had done what they had done. And now no one could deny their place in history. Their style, part honky-tonk, part rock, part radio-friendly pop, had shaped the sound of 90s and 2000s country. That night, they weren't just stars, they were icons. Years passed, but they didn't fade. In 2024, they came back with Reboot 2. It followed the same idea. Now, at 72, Ronnie Dunn is reflecting on everything: his childhood, his faith, his rise to stardom, and the painful breakup with Kix Brooks. In a recent interview, he finally admitted the real reason for the split in 2009. It wasn't just burnout. It was about needing space, needing to breathe, and needing to rediscover who he was without the pressure of a brand. That truth, shared so openly, shocked even close insiders in Nashville. Ronnie's confession reminded everyone that behind the fame and success, there are real people facing real struggles. It wasn't just a band ending, it was a man trying to find himself again. Today, Ronnie Dunn is no longer just one half of a legendary duo. He is a survivor, a storyteller, and a man who still believes in the power of music to heal, inspire, and reveal the truth. And maybe that's the biggest bombshell of all. Just when fans thought the story of Brooks and Dunn was over, something surprising happened. After several years apart, Ronnie Dunn and Kix Brooks found their way back to each other, not just as performers, but as friends. The country music world was buzzing again. In 2015, the duo announced they would reunite for a Las Vegas residency with another legend, Reba McEntire. The show, titled Together in Vegas, brought back the magic of their early years. For longtime fans, it was emotional to see them side by side again, singing the songs that defined a generation. But this wasn't just a reunion tour, it was a healing process. The distance they had taken from each other helped them reconnect in a healthier, more balanced way. They no longer had to carry the weight of the brand 24/7. Now, they could simply enjoy making music together again. Their return to the stage was more than just nostalgic. It proved that their chemistry hadn't faded. Ronnie's voice was still powerful and moving, and Kix's energy was as strong as ever. Their Las Vegas performances were a hit, selling out night after night and receiving glowing reviews. Fans who had grown up with their music were now bringing their own children to see the duo live. It was a full-circle moment, not just for Brooks and Dunn, but for country music itself. They also began recording new material together. In 2019, they released an album titled Reboot, which featured modern country stars like Luke Combs, Kane Brown, and Casey Musgraves covering Brooks and Dunn's biggest hits. The project was a success and showed that their music still resonated with a younger generation. It also proved something even more powerful: Brooks and Dunn's legacy had never really faded. It was just waiting for the right moment to shine again. While many country artists from the 90s struggle to stay relevant in today's music world, Ronnie Dunn has remained true to himself. He doesn't chase trends. Instead, he embraces what makes him unique: his faith, his voice, his storytelling. Over the years, he's spoken more openly about the emotional toll of fame and the silent battles he fought after the group's breakup. He's talked about moments of self-doubt, loneliness, and the pressure to keep proving himself. But what makes Ronnie inspiring isn't just his talent, it's his resilience. Even when the spotlight dimmed, he kept writing, kept singing, and kept believing in the power of real music. His solo work may not have reached the same commercial highs as Brooks and Dunn, but it's full of soul, honesty, and depth. And for many fans, that's more meaningful than any chart position. As he enters his 70s, Ronnie Dunn continues to create. He's not chasing awards or trying to top the charts. Instead, he's focusing on authenticity. His music now feels like a conversation, raw, heartfelt, and wise. In interviews, he reflects on the past with humility and grace. He's proud of what he built with Kix Brooks, but also honest about the struggles they faced. That honesty is what makes Ronnie so relatable. He doesn't pretend to have it all figured out. He shares his journey, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And in doing so, he gives fans something even more valuable than a hit song: the feeling that they're not alone in their own struggles. Ronnie Dunn's story isn't just about country music. It's about perseverance, growth, and finding your voice, even when the world stops listening. It's about taking risks when it would be easier to quit. It's about rebuilding yourself when you've been broken. And most of all, it's about staying true to your roots while still reaching for something new. Today, fans don't just remember Ronnie Dunn as part of the greatest country duo of all time, they see him as a solo artist with depth, courage, and soul. His legacy is already written in the history books of music. But perhaps his most important work is the example he sets, that it's never too late to speak your truth, take control of your story, and keep singing, no matter what age you are.